The Red Sea, a significant geological feature located between Africa and Asia, functioning as a vital body of water that connects to the Indian Ocean. It is bordered by several countries, including Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen, and features two notable gulfs, the Gulf of Suez and the Gulf of Aqaba. The Red Sea is characterized by its high temperatures and salinity, making it one of the hottest and saltiest seas globally, and it experiences unique circulation patterns that influence its marine ecosystem. Geologically, it is part of the African Rift Valley system, where the tectonic plates of Africa and Arabia are slowly separating, a process that continues to create new geological formations and support diverse marine life. The sea is renowned for its vibrant coral reefs and rich biodiversity, attracting divers and scientists alike. Historically and economically, the Red Sea has served as a critical trade route since ancient times, facilitating commerce between Africa, Arabia, and beyond. However, recent geopolitical tensions have led to significant disruptions in shipping and trade within the region. Despite these challenges, the Red Sea remains a focal point for both scientific research and cultural exchange, reflecting its importance in understanding geological and ecological processes. The Red Sea is one of Earth's most dynamic and interesting geological features. Its location and continuing geological activity make it essential in the geological history and development of both Africa and Asia and an important source of information about geological processes and their impacts. The Red Sea is one of several important seas associated with the Indian Ocean. It is almost totally landlocked by the Sinai Peninsula to the north, Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, and Djibouti to the west, and Saudi Arabia and Yemen to the east. The southern end connects via Bab el-Mandeb, a 32-kilometer strait that divides Yemen from Djibouti to the Gulf of Aden, leading to the Arabian Sea and thence to the Indian Ocean. The northern end splits into two small gulfs, the relatively shallow Gulf of Suez to the west and the much deeper Gulf of Aqaba to the east. In the north, the Gulf of Suez connects to the Mediterranean Sea via the Suez Canal, completed in 1869 after a 10-year effort that included the innovative use of 3 natural lakes and a set of canals. The Red Sea is recognized as the major divide between the continents of Africa and Asia. Several islands, many of them exposed coral reefs, lie within its waters, particularly at the southern end. In the north, the Gulf of Aqaba is also bordered by Israel and Jordan. In the south, beyond Bab el-Mandeb, the Gulf of Aden is also bordered by Somalia. A body of water with a brilliant blue-green hue, the Red Sea likely takes its name from the occasional blooms of the red algae Trichodesmium erythraeum, which, upon death, give the surrounding waters a reddish-brown tint. Other explanations that have been proposed include the reflection of the sun-burnished cliffs in its waters or the reddish skin color of populations living near it. Records of ancient Egypt, Palestine, and Mesopotamia provide references indicating that the sea was termed red by the earliest civilizations within the region. However, at that time, it referred to an area extending all the way to the northwest coast of India, today's Indian Ocean. The Red Sea, technically a graben, is part of the African Rift Valley system or the Great Rift Valley, a major geological depression and fault zone on the surface. This is the point where the African and Arabian tectonic plates have been slowly tearing apart, rifting, under the influence of strong magmatic convection currents in the underlying mantle. Over time, this will eventually split the African continent into 2 separate land masses, forming a new sea between them in the process. This large rift valley extends south from the Sinai Peninsula about 3,500 kilometers, reaching as far as Tanzania and north for about 450 kilometers, through the Jordan Rift Valley along the Dead Sea Rift. The Red Sea Valley itself cuts through a mass of Precambrian igneous, basalt, and metamorphic rocks known as the Arabian-Nubian Massif, the upper portions of which form the rugged mountains, technically known as steep fault scarps, which ring the sea. On top of the Precambrian rock strata sit layers of Paleozoic marine sediments laid down some 544 to 245 million years ago, as well as Mesozoic and Cenozoic sediments as much as 57 million years old. The 30-million-year-old Red Sea was created when the Arabian Peninsula began to break away from Africa and moved north in two distinct phases. The northern part of the Red Sea was created over 10 million years. Subsequent geological movement commencing about 3 to 4 million years ago created the much deeper Gulf of Aqaba and the southern half of the Red Sea. The movement, which continues in the 21st century, adds about 15 millimeters per year to the width of the Red Sea and supports unique forms of marine life among the hydrothermal vents in the deepest parts of the sea, where extensive volcanism and seismic activity occur. There are several active undersea volcanoes at the southern end just south of the Dahlak archipelago, as well as a recently extinct volcano on the island of Jabal at-Ta'ir. 5 major types of mineral resources are present in the Red Sea region. Oil and natural gas deposits have been extensively tapped near the junction of the Gulf of Suez and the main body of the Red Sea. Evaporites such as halite, sylvite, gypsum, and dolomite are mined along the Sinai Peninsula, although not in proportion to what is available. Sulfur deposits have been extensively mined since the beginning of the 20th century, while the phosphate deposits are of such a low grade that extraction techniques make them economically unattractive resources. There are extensive and valuable heavy metal deposits in the deep portions of the Red Sea along the Atlantis to Deep Basin, but these deposits are not yet commercially mined. Because they are found in the form of fluid oozes rather than solid rocks, it is believed that they may be able to be pumped up to the surface, although attempts to do so in more than a casual manner have proved elusive. The Red Sea extends some 2,000 kilometers from north to south and is about 350 kilometers across at its widest point, near the southern end. Its maximum depth is about 3,000 meters, although there is an extensive continental shelf around the periphery of the entire sea that is no more than a few hundred meters deep. The Red Sea contains some of the world's hottest and saltiest waters, with an average temperature of 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, and an average salinity of 40 parts per thousand. Little precipitation occurs in the area, although evidence exists that more significant precipitation occurred during some past periods. A remarkable circulatory system maintains the water level in the face of very high evaporation rates of more than 2 meters per year along its length and breadth. The denser, saltier water of the north sinks and flows south along the lower depths, while winds drive less dense and less salty waters, about 36 parts per thousand, above it northward from the shallow southern end of the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. This results in a complete replacement of the sea's water about every 20 years. Underneath this exchange of salt water, very deep in the central trough, brine with an average temperature of almost 60 degrees Celsius and a salinity of 257 parts per thousand rises from underground sources. This upward movement adds to the general circulation within the Red Sea and measurably increases its overall salinity. Fierce windstorms can arise suddenly on the Red Sea, especially coming off the desert sands to the northwest, called the Egyptian winds. Daily air temperature ranges from 8 to 28 degrees Celsius during the fall, winter, and spring, with scorching highs of up to 40 degrees Celsius in July and August, accompanied by intense relative humidity. The Red Sea provides scientists with a glimpse of geologic processes that likely occurred in the early stages of the formation of the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean basins during the breakup of Pangaea some 250 million years ago. The continuing movement of the Arabian Plate northward adds to the width of the Red Sea each year in a small but measurable way. It provides a living laboratory to observe ongoing volcanic and seismic activity associated with the evolution of crustal margins, along with the action of hydrothermal vents. The Red Sea's complex water chemistry and geology have been the focus of many scientific expeditions in the modern era, including those conducted in such submersibles as the Swedish Albatross, 1948, and the American Glomar Challenger, 1972, the latter of which drilled and removed core samples from some of the sea's deepest locations. The undersea vents and the extreme saltiness of the Red Sea support a unique and varied marine life, including spectacular coral reefs, notably the Protector Reef near Port Sudan, Ras Muhammad at the southern tip of the Sinai, one of the top 10 diving spots in the world, and the Deadless Reef parallel with Aswan, Egypt. Vibrantly colored exotic fish and an abundance of rare and endangered species of marine life found nowhere else in the world attract visitors from all over the globe. Thousands of species of fish and invertebrates and hundreds of types of coral have been identified within its teeming waters. Its natural beauty has been a lure for divers since ancient times, and it has recently become a popular subject of nature films and a playground for underwater photography enthusiasts. Scientists continued to study marine life in the Red Sea in the 21st century. In 2022, one of the most extensive studies of marine life in the Red Sea was released, highlighting the water's biodiversity and the coral reef's brilliance. Though some areas were in dire condition, the study found many thriving plants and animals in the waters. The Red Sea has been important since ancient times as a commercial and cultural waterway that provides access to and from Africa, Arabia, and the Indian subcontinent. This is despite the danger posed by its many reefs that lie just below the surface and the need to keep the southern channel open at Bab el-Mandeb Strait by blasting and dredging regularly. From the time of Seti I, d. 1279, before the Common Era BCE, and Ramses II, ca. 1303 BCE, 1213 BCE, the Egyptians used shallow canals to connect the Red Sea to branches of the Nile River Delta and permit the easy passage of goods via sea rather than by an arduous land route through blistering desert sands. The Greek, Roman, and early Muslim empires continued this practice until the end of the 8th century Common Era, CE. The modern Suez Canal has assured the Red Sea a critical place in world commerce. However, hostilities among Arab nations, Israel, and African nations sometimes led to the complete closure of this important sea artery during the 20th century. The Israel-Palestine conflict, which began with Hamas' attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, has had dire consequences for the Red Sea. In solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza, the Yemen-based Houthis have launched attacks on shipping vessels tied to Israel in the Red Sea. This has caused significant disruption to global trade as traffic in the Red Sea has decreased by 40% since the outbreak of the conflict. This issue prompted the United States to launch Operation Prosperity Guardian to protect Red Sea shipping routes. Finally, due to the ability of the Red Sea to connect many nations in the region, fears surrounding the proliferation of the conflict beyond Israel and Palestine have been voiced. Major seaports in the Red Sea include Suez and El Suwais in Egypt, Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, Eilat in Israel, Al-Aqaba in Jordan, Massawa in Eritrea, and Bur-Sudan and Suakin in Sudan. Fishing, a major regional industry producing more than 8,000 metric tons per year, is supported by the extensive reefs that plunge thousands of meters to the ocean floor. The Red Sea is a narrow sea in the Middle East that extends from Suez, Egypt, to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, connecting to the Gulf of Aden and the Arabian Sea. It separates the coasts of Egypt, Sudan, and Eritrea from Saudi Arabia and Yemen. It is approximately 1,200 miles long with a maximum width of 190 miles, and a greatest depth of 9,974 feet. The Red Sea is one of the world's hottest and saltiest bodies of seawater. No rivers drain into it, and rainfall is scant. The Red Sea connects to the Mediterranean Sea via the Suez Canal, making it a heavily traveled waterway between Europe and Asia. The sea is normally blue-green but can turn reddish-brown due to blooms of algae. Navigation can be difficult due to unindented shorelines, coral reefs, heat shimmer, sandstorms, and irregular water currents. The Red Sea is a narrow body of water that stretches from Suez, Egypt, to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, connecting with the Gulf of Aden and the Arabian Sea. It is situated between the coasts of Egypt, Sudan, and Eritrea to the west, and Saudi Arabia and Yemen to the east. Jordan and Israel border the Gulf of Aqaba to the northeast, and Djibouti sits on the western side of the sea's opening onto the Gulf of Aden. The Red Sea occupies part of a large rift valley in the continental crust of Africa and Arabia. It is approximately 1,200 miles, 1,930 kilometers, long with a maximum width of 190 miles, and its area is about 174,000 square miles, 450,000 square km. The sea is known for having some of the world's hottest and saltiest seawater. The Red Sea is bordered by several countries. On its eastern coast, it is bordered by Saudi Arabia and Yemen. To the west, the countries that border the Red Sea are Egypt, Sudan, and Eritrea. Additionally, Jordan and Israel share a border with the Red Sea via the Gulf of Aqaba, and Djibouti is situated on the western side where the Red Sea opens into the Gulf of Aden. The name Red Sea comes from the color changes seen in its waters. Normally blue-green, the Red Sea occasionally experiences extensive blooms of the algae Trichodesmium erythraeum, which turn the sea a reddish-brown color when they die off. Located between Africa and Asia, the Red Sea stretches from Suez, Egypt, to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, connecting to the Gulf of Aden and the Arabian Sea. It is a heavily trafficked waterway linking Europe and Asia via the Suez Canal. The Red Sea is a heavily traveled waterway that stretches from Suez, Egypt, to the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, connecting with the Gulf of Aden and the Arabian Sea. Its strategic location relative to the Suez Canal and the Persian Gulf contains some of the world's busiest shipping lanes. The Red Sea connects to the Mediterranean Sea via the Suez Canal, providing the shortest maritime route between Europe and the lands around the Indian and Western Pacific Oceans. The chief shipping routes in the Arabian Sea originate in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. Since ancient times, the Red Sea has been an important water route for maritime commerce. The Red Sea is a sea inlet of the Indian Ocean, lying between Africa and Asia. Its connection to the ocean is in the south, through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and the Gulf of Aden. To the north of the Red Sea lies the Sinai Peninsula, the Gulf of Aqaba, and the Gulf of Suez, which leads to the Suez Canal. It is underlain by the Red Sea Rift, which is part of the Great Rift Valley. The Red Sea has a surface area of roughly 438,000 square kilometers, 169,000 square miles, is about 2,250 kilometers, 1,400 miles long, and 355 kilometers, 221 miles across at its widest point. It has an average depth of 490 meters, 1,610 feet, and in the central Suakin Trough, it reaches its maximum depth of 2,730 meters, 8,960 feet. The Red Sea is quite shallow, with approximately 40% of its area being less than 100 meters, 330 feet deep, and approximately 25% being less than 50 meters, 160 feet deep. The extensive shallow shelves are noted for their marine life and corals. More than 1,000 invertebrate species and 200 types of soft and hard coral live in the sea. The Red Sea is the world's northernmost tropical sea and has been designated a global 200 ecoregion. The Red Sea is one of the most extraordinary and consequential bodies of water on Earth. Stretching like a long, narrow ribbon between northeastern Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, it has shaped geology, climate, biodiversity, trade, religion, politics, and human imagination for thousands of years. It is at once ancient and young, fragile and resilient, peaceful and contested. To understand the Red Sea is to understand a crossroads of continents and civilizations, a marine ecosystem of global significance, and a strategic corridor that continues to influence the balance of power in the modern world. Geographically, the Red Sea occupies a unique and commanding position. It lies between Africa to the west and Asia to the east, bordered by nations whose histories and futures are deeply tied to its waters. Along the African coast stand Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, and Djibouti. Across the sea on the Arabian side lie Saudi Arabia and Yemen. At its northern end, the sea divides into two arms that embrace the Sinai Peninsula, while at its southern end it narrows into the Bab el-Mandeb Strait before opening toward the Gulf of Aden and the wider Indian Ocean. Through the man-made artery of the Suez Canal, it connects directly to the Mediterranean, forming one of the most vital maritime corridors on the planet. The Red Sea's physical dimensions are impressive. It stretches roughly 2,250 kilometers in length and reaches depths exceeding 2,000 meters in its central trough. Unlike many seas fed by great rivers, it receives very little freshwater input. Evaporation rates are extremely high due to the surrounding deserts, while rainfall is scarce. This combination results in waters that are warmer and saltier than the global ocean average. The sea's clarity, often extending dozens of meters below the surface, reveals vibrant coral reefs and schools of brightly colored fish. Yet beneath this tranquil surface lies a geological story of immense force and transformation. Geologically speaking, the Red Sea is relatively young. It began forming around 20 to 30 million years ago as the African and Arabian tectonic plates started pulling apart. This rifting process created a widening gap that gradually filled with seawater. Even today, the plates continue to drift apart at a slow but measurable rate. In the deep central basin, new oceanic crust is forming, making the Red Sea one of the few places on Earth where scientists can observe the early stages of ocean formation. Hydrothermal vents and deep brine pools at the seafloor host extremophile microorganisms capable of surviving in harsh, high salinity, low oxygen conditions. These environments provide valuable insight into the adaptability of life and the possible conditions under which life might exist elsewhere in the universe. The surrounding climate is dominated by arid deserts, including extensions of the Sahara and the Arabian Desert. Summer air temperatures often exceed 40 degrees Celsius, and the sea itself remains warm throughout the year. These conditions contribute to high evaporation and salinity levels, but they also shape a distinctive marine ecosystem. Coral reefs fringe much of the coastline, forming complex structures that support more than 1,000 species of fish, along with mollusks, crustaceans, sea turtles, dolphins, dugongs, and sharks. A notable percentage of these species are endemic, meaning they are found nowhere else on Earth. This combination of biodiversity and endemism makes the Red Sea one of the world's most significant marine habitats. Remarkably, certain coral systems in the northern Red Sea have shown unusual tolerance to elevated temperatures. While coral bleaching has devastated reefs in many other parts of the world, some Red Sea corals appear more resilient. Scientists are studying these reefs closely, hoping to understand the genetic or environmental factors that allow them to survive heat stress. If these mechanisms can be understood and applied elsewhere, the Red Sea may contribute to global coral conservation strategies. However, resilience does not imply invulnerability. Rising global temperatures, ocean acidification, pollution, and coastal development still pose serious threats. Long before scientists studied its reefs, the Red Sea shaped the course of human history. As early as the 3rd millennium BCE, the civilization of ancient Egypt launched expeditions down its waters in search of trade goods from the mysterious land of Punt. Ships returned laden with incense, gold, ebony, and exotic animals, reinforcing Egypt's wealth and spiritual life. Over centuries, the sea became a bridge linking Africa, Arabia, and Asia. With the expansion of the Roman Empire, trade intensified. Roman merchants used Red Sea ports to access spices from India, silk from China, and precious stones from distant lands. The sea became a conduit of globalization long before the term existed. Religious tradition further deepened the Red Sea's significance. In biblical narrative, it is associated with the story of Moses leading the Israelites out of bondage, a moment that has echoed through Jewish, Christian, and Islamic teachings for millennia. For Muslims, the sea also played a role in early Islamic history and facilitated the spread of faith between Arabia and Africa. Pilgrims and scholars crossed its waters, reinforcing spiritual and cultural ties between continents. Thus, the Red Sea is not merely a geographic space but a sacred landscape embedded in the collective memory of billions. Throughout the medieval and early modern periods, the Red Sea remained central to trade networks. Arab merchants, African sailors, and Asian traders navigated its currents using seasonal winds. Ports flourished as centers of commerce and cultural exchange. Architecture along the coasts reflected this blending of influences, with coral stone buildings and wooden balconies overlooking busy harbors. Markets bustled with spices, textiles, coffee, and pearls. The sea fostered hybrid identities, where African and Arab traditions intertwined. European exploration altered these dynamics. Portuguese attempts to control Indian Ocean trade routes in the 16th century introduced new competition. Later, imperial rivalries intensified as European powers recognized the strategic value of a direct maritime link between Europe and Asia. The construction of the Suez Canal in the 19th century transformed the Red Sea permanently. By eliminating the need to sail around the Cape of Good Hope, the canal drastically shortened travel times and elevated the Red Sea into one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. Control over this corridor became a geopolitical priority, influencing conflicts and alliances well into the 20th century. In the contemporary era, the Red Sea's geopolitical importance has only grown. Vast quantities of oil and goods transit its waters daily. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait is a critical choke point. Any disruption there reverberates across global markets. Conflicts in surrounding regions, especially in Yemen, have underscored the vulnerability of maritime routes. International naval patrols operate to safeguard shipping from piracy and armed threats. Djibouti hosts multiple foreign military bases, reflecting the strategic stakes concentrated in this relatively narrow stretch of water. Economic ambition continues to reshape the coastline. Tourism has flourished, particularly in Egyptian resort towns where divers are drawn by clear waters and vibrant reefs. Coastal development projects promise diversification and modernization. In Saudi Arabia, the ambitious project known as NEOM aims to create a futuristic urban environment powered by renewable energy and advanced technologies. Such initiatives seek to redefine the Red Sea coast as a hub of innovation. Yet they also raise questions about ecological impact and cultural preservation. Conservation efforts are underway to balance development with environmental stewardship. Protected areas such as Ras Mohammed National Park safeguard coral reefs, mangroves, and marine life from excessive exploitation. Scientists collaborate across borders to monitor reef health and fisheries. However, effective conservation requires consistent enforcement, regional cooperation, and public awareness. Marine ecosystems ignore political boundaries. Pollution or overfishing in one nation can affect neighbors hundreds of kilometers away. The Red Sea's marine life supports not only biodiversity but also livelihoods. Fishing communities depend on healthy stocks for food and income. Traditional dhow building and pearl diving reflect a maritime heritage passed down through generations. Coastal societies have long adapted to the rhythms of tides and winds. Modernization brings new opportunities but also cultural shifts. Preserving intangible heritage is as crucial as protecting coral reefs. Climate change adds another layer of complexity. Rising temperatures, shifting weather patterns, and potential sea level rise threaten both natural and human systems. Coastal infrastructure must adapt to new environmental realities. At the same time, the Red Sea's apparent coral resilience offers cautious optimism. Research conducted here may help inform broader climate adaptation strategies. The sea stands at the intersection of vulnerability and possibility. Economically, the Red Sea exemplifies global interdependence. A blockage in its shipping lanes can disrupt supply chains across continents, affecting food prices, energy markets, and manufacturing schedules. The 21st century economy relies on smooth maritime transit, and the Red Sea is indispensable to that system. Investments in port modernization, digital logistics, and maritime security seek to enhance resilience. Yet economic resilience must align with ecological sustainability. Culturally, the Red Sea remains a living space rather than a mere transit route. Markets, mosques, churches, and homes line its shores. Stories of traders, pilgrims, and fishermen continue to shape community identity. Cuisine reflects centuries of exchange, blending African spices with Arabian flavors. Music and language bear traces of cross-continental contact. The sea has never been a simple dividing line, it has always been a bridge. The future of the Red Sea depends on choices made today. Nations bordering its waters must navigate the tension between rapid development and environmental preservation. Regional cooperation in maritime security can reduce the risk of conflict. Scientific research can guide sustainable practices. Community engagement can ensure that progress does not erase cultural heritage. Global stakeholders, too, share responsibility, for the benefits derived from the Red Sea extend far beyond its shores. In contemplating the Red Sea, one sees a microcosm of humanity's broader challenge. It is a place where natural systems and human ambition intersect. It reminds us that geological processes unfold over millions of years, while political and economic decisions can reshape landscapes within decades. It demonstrates that resilience, whether ecological or cultural, is not infinite. Above all, it underscores interconnectedness. The Red Sea has endured tectonic upheaval, climatic extremes, imperial rivalries, and modern globalization. Its waters have carried incense and gold, pilgrims and armies, oil tankers and container ships. It has inspired faith, fostered trade, and supported life in environments that might otherwise seem inhospitable. It stands as both witness and participant in the unfolding story of civilization. Ultimately, the Red Sea is more than a geographic feature. It is a dynamic system that links continents, ecosystems, economies, and beliefs. Its clarity reveals not only coral gardens but also the reflection of human responsibility. If managed with foresight, cooperation, and respect for natural limits, it can continue to sustain biodiversity, commerce, and culture for generations to come. If neglected, it could become a cautionary tale of overexploitation. The endurance of the Red Sea over millions of years invites humility. The choices made in the coming decades will determine whether its future is defined by balance or by loss. In its shimmering expanse between Africa and Arabia lies a profound lesson: connection is powerful, but it demands care. Thank you for watching this video.